Are we live on YouTube? Good morning, YouTube. We're going to once again be hitting this portrait, head and shoulders portrait of Willy Wonka. 1972 Willy Wonka. And we're going to kick it over to Facebook too. Now, once we're streaming, which I believe we will be momentarily. Yes. And oh, you know what I did? I made a mistake. We got to change this. Part 2. Save. Part 2. And then we've got another. We have a brand new cover. There we go. Let's put her up. We're going to do, sorry about this, portrait paintings. No. And we should be good. Yep, there we go. All right. Now we're time lapsing. We're streaming and get our stuff in place. And now should be good to go. Just make sure we get our chat. We figured out that we could chat yesterday on YouTube and Facebook. So that was great. Unfortunately, the stream went out to YouTube as part 1, but we fixed the title. Now it's part 2. And yep, just wanted to get out the door here at 8:30. And now we're going to figure it out. All right. We're early birds here. We'll put this. Let's put this right, okay? Okay, after 3 minutes, we can do it. So, what does that mean? If you're watching the time lapse, I think we're going to want to knock in the bow tie next. That's just me. So, let's find our darks for the bow tie. Super darks. The uber darks are here. There's a black. There's another one here. There's part of one here. And then we can do some middle of the road darks. Take our, still a little bit of dust coming off from the weekend. But if we start out with a nice solid middle values here. Okay, so you see that? That's all. Unless I'm missing something, let's play a quick game of Spot the Difference. Shadows edition. Yeah, we could put this one in here. There's also some around the bottom of the... Yeah, like sort of right along this edge. We could go edge there. We could go... Oh, we didn't get the corner here. Okay. So with all that done, we don't particularly have anything in store for what our highlights are. But what we'll do is we're going to do one. Let's get this dark. Okay. We'll find this dark. See how dark that is? We're going to find... It's so interesting how actually much more difficult it is to spot things than I think it is. Like, okay, I don't have my underdrawing delineating everything on the tie. You'd think, it's okay as long as you have the dark darks. Not the case. But we can put in our middle values. And well, look what I sort of completely and utterly failed to do. There's a whole shadow here that would help us. And then a whole shadow here. Okay, let's not miss that. So it's going to be a bow tie, fancy shirt day. Now, one thing that's interesting here about the way I'm approaching this, at least I'm catching myself here, I want to get the highlights first, actually. Because if you just, it's good to get a little bit of both going, but it's going to be very important to get these highlights situated, because ultimately they're what describe the form of the tie. So see what I'm doing? I'm just looking to the right and looking to the left and seeing if I missed anything. Okay, there's one. There's another highlight that lives right up against this one. There's one, obviously, almost this whole thing is a highlight. And then it kind of carves up and away. See, wraps around. And this one here kind of comes in. Pop a little highlight there. There's a little one that comes. I mean, these could be considered middle values as well, but because we don't have anything but dark background there now, we just call them highlights. Nice highlight here. Come with me. Interesting that this is also a highlight. See, I'm just sort of scrubbing that in like it's a drawing. Find out here. Now, obviously, I've gone very light with these highlights. They're not all going to be this bright. And look, they're basically the same value as the background. So the tie is actually the same background value. That makes life easier in some ways. Oh, this one's... Well, let's keep going. Nice highlight here. Find our way wrapping around. And then a nice highlight. It's hard. You got to keep your eye very focused here because there's so much happening. Like this is almost a highlight. I mean, it is a highlight. So... find out where those go. Let's get our collar in here. nice swath of white paint there. It's blown out. This is another example where the kind of 70s photography they don't have. I don't know why it is. What's different about the technical aspects, but the lights here are just blown to smithereens, so they can't quite any white like on the collar is going to be totally overexposed. Maybe that's something they do in post-production. I don't know how it worked. But this doesn't look to me like it's a video grab. It looks like a promotional photo that they did and then used it on the posters. And the thing that tells me that, well, I see I can see why I think that is, and you can agree or not, but it doesn't really, it could be a video still, I guess, but it looks more like a photo. And then I've seen posters of the film, and they're really interesting. They're good to check out. If you look at like the promotional poster, like one of the main ones, it shows this image, but somebody's kind of done a real painterly illustration. Not at all like this, not with brush work, but more like smoothing everything out. And that might be another style to pursue at some point. But I think we're going a little bit more for Norman Rockwell. Not that I'm even coming close to like imbuing my portraits with the kind of expressiveness of the Rockwell covers, but it's just kind of the idea. It's like you take something that's sort of an everyday subject matter and make it into this kind of painterly, quasi-academic thing. So that's my artist's statement. Conceptually speaking, that's about all I got, folks. All right, so now you see what we get without having to dig into the rest of it. Come with me, and you'll see. All right, this is all highlight here, basically, right? Did I just grab from the tie again? Yes. Don't you worry. We'll break that habit. We'll shake it. There's so many other well, certainly, at least in the Major League Baseball department, there's lots of excitement. We got the Mets wild card clinch, and we're going. That's today at something like 5:30 in Milwaukee. 3-game series. Now I have not watched baseball in a long time, so I don't know how the wild card system works anymore, or how it ever worked, because it's a new thing, I think. But I believe it's something to do with, I think it's just a regular 3-game series. Well, meaning they're going to play Milwaukee for 3 games, and then I just don't know if it's like sudden death, elimination, how any of that works. I haven't watched it in that long. But we'll see. All right, there's our shadow edge on the collar. We're just going to carry on down the pike here. Get a beautiful lavender color. We're going to get a dark color for the shirt. Come with me. And you'll see. Just finding our darkest darks in the shirt is very similar to it's what am I trying to say here? What I'm trying to do here when I go about getting the darks in here, I want to do it in a way where I don't get lost in the details of what the darks are. And that's basically always the game here, is not getting sucked into the vortex of hyper detail. Because as we've talked about many, many times, I like the broad, brushy. Faye, helmet. What's happening? How's the helmeting? Do you even helmet? I get into the brushwork here, and the idea is if I get lost in the weeds about what's happening inside those darkest darks, you're gonna get lost, and it's gonna become this onerous task. And really what we're trying to do is just get our muscle memory up to speed in such a way that we can pull this kind of thing off quickly and economically. Faye Helmet, I'm going crazy with the Italian Duolingo right now. I got on there yesterday and unlocked some kind of double your experience points mode, and I just went nuts for like an hour straight, just clocking new XP. and I went straight to the top of the league. It's going to be a while, like it's going to take a long time for anybody to catch me on there. But that was fun. I think it's starting to make sense to me more. Not like I'm learning so many things by seeing the words written out. Like there are just countless examples where I didn't know anything that I thought I knew. I think the biggest one that surprised me the most was the idea that, like, just the way the endings correlate, like, it's hard to explain, but it's just seeing it written out is really helpful. So I'm working on the Italian language again for real, and I'm plowing away. I'm looking forward to when I get to the point in the lesson where I don't know what the words are. I haven't ever really gotten something like that yet. In other words, when I'm basically reviewing because I'm taking like the beginner lessons, intermediate or like level 2, and I know more of I know everything that they're talking about. So it's just review kind of, but there are definitely moments in there where it's like, oh, that's how that is? That's how you say that? Can't think of one offhand. Okie doke. Let's see where we're at. And why not just blast this stuff in? We kind of want... I'm not going to do these little like curly cues on the jacket here. It's going to just be, oh man, the lapel. That's good. That's fine. And we can change that later if we need to. So I think once we finish up, I think we're going to do a Spooktober, like a serious Spooktober. Like, what's the date today? Is it already October? I think it might be. But once this is over, we're going to go squarely into the horror zone. We're just going to be chopping them up. We got Freddy. We got... I don't know. I'm not really like a classic horror buff. But I will... The other day I was watching a ridiculous scary movie. I subscribe to this thing Shudder. And it is ridiculous. Like, for the most part... It ain't really Siskel and Ebert level material, but You get some gems in there every once in a while. Now, let's take our middle value. So interesting that we see right along here the I don't know if you noticed this. This may just be my generation, but I think all of a sudden, everyone's joining TikTok. I think TikTok maybe started like doing some serious promotion for boomers. And I think that because I'm seeing everybody's joining the fun. And I don't know. It's to me, it seems like an even more horrific kind of. The content is usually more disturbing than even on X, and I don't know if that's a boomer viewpoint, but it's just like it's like the worst of Facebook, but like all the time on TikTok. And then the other thing that has me a little worried about it is I don't know what I was going to say. But yeah, it's like it just seems like TikTok has a lot of, police shooting stuff, and I don't know. It's the Wild West, right? What I used to call OMG snake videos. Because when I was forming my when I was creating my oh, you know what I forgot to do? Speaking of which, I'm not all set up today. I'm streaming on Facebook, but I'm not streaming to my portrait painters group. So what I was going to say was when I made my portrait painters group, the idea was to now I'm going to forget what I'm talking about. Are we live on Portrait Painters? I think so. We should be. If you're joining, welcome. I was a little late to invite the gang from Portrait Painters Group. But when I was starting out with forming Portrait Painters Group, I was telling a story about you group members. When I was starting the Portrait Painters Group, there was a while where we allowed people to post videos, and then we had to stop that because the group became public and they became inundated with these videos that were like, the caption would just say OMG. And it would be like somebody sticking like a long thing into a muddy, like sinkhole in the ground. And they would somehow lure a snake from underneath the ground, and like a giant anaconda or something would come out the hole. And it was like, oh my God. The caption was just OMG, and they would show like the emoji with like the blood coming out of the emoji's head and stuff. And it was like, I get it. I wanted to watch it, but it was just had nothing to do with portrait painting. So I had to get rid of those videos. And for a while, Facebook didn't really know how to deal with the influx of OMG snake videos. It weren't just snakes. It would be like somebody in a room with a tiger or something, like, and it was like, OMG, what's going to happen here? But it's good content, that's for sure. I'm not going to say I didn't watch it once. I watched an OMG documentary last night where it was really kind of a tragic story. I didn't remember that the person had been killed or died, and there's not much of a investigation underway to see what, if anything, happened there. Any foul play. But this was the documentary about people who escaped from a prison. It was like the county lockdown, where you could have people there for traffic tickets, or you could have people there for capital murder waiting for trial. And anyway, this lady who was the corrections officer, the main corrections officer, like basically operations, like without her, wait a second. Oh no, darn it. Without this lady, that was weird. Without this lady, the place basically wouldn't run, because she just had been there for so long, and she was like in charge of operations. Everybody described her as like the mom, and even the inmates loved her. And anyway, she formed a relationship with one of the inmates, and it does not end well for anyone. I guess it ends sort of well for the inmate, because he gets to get out of jail for a week or so. But at the expense of a lot of taxpayer dollars and community safety and so forth. Anyway, interesting true crime doc. Worth a watch if you're into it. Okie doke. Come with me. All right, there's a little kind of paint by numbers look and feel to that. I'm okay with that. Nah. Yeah, so rather than the difference here is filling in. Rather than thinking about this like, oh, I'm just filling in the holes here, like another way to think about this as you're building up is more like you're trying to, it's sculptural, like, and that's, I don't know, okay, what does that mean? These are forms in real life that are in space. And the way this jacket lapel rests on his chest is, it's a certain way. And rather than just my scrubbing in just fill it in, you want to kind of go for, you want to, yes, you could just fill it in like it's a coloring book. But I think the idea that I'm looking for is more like the line, the way that line sits there. So, go in the direction of the form, all that kind of thing will help you. All right, now we're going to do the left arm on the left. Get some, like here. You follow the form. Follow the form. Follow the form as it wraps around. And then you can get a giant brush. This is what I would normally do if I had this big patch of brushwork to put in. You could just use it. Use the brush and just scrub it in. Now this is probably darker than that. I don't know. Get the darks lined up. See that? Yeah, that's much darker. You gotta hit it with darks. Something like that. As we get down here to the bottom of the canvas, there's the chance that my tablet will flip off because of the way I have it balanced. There's a little bit of the velveteen sheen of Wonka's coat here. Okay, we're coming into a close here on our... What I said was probably not a good idea to do paint by numbers. But we did it anyway. Sometimes you have to. But here, let's get in here, finish doing the darks of the jacket, la giacca. I remember this part of the underdrawing. Oh, thank goodness. Sounded like there was a honker out there for a while, where they just keep honking. It's probably a, what is it, it's a security alarm. It's an alarm, car alarm. All right, we're going along here. We're trying to fill in darks. We're doing our paint by numbers, not paint by numbers thing. Semi paint by numbers. And this is going to result, hopefully, in a purple, we don't need to you'll notice that if I were to get in here and do every little sprinkly highlight, then Wonka's face would no longer be prime focus. Now, by prime focus, I just mean when you look at this thing, you want to be drawn into the expression. That's at least the traditional thing, and that's kind of what I'm going for here, is elements of traditional along with the modern. Obviously the subject matter is modern, but I want to try to bring my training as like a traditional painter to the, and kind of mash these worlds together. Today we have the challenge of working on this shirt. So if you look at the shirt, you're going to see things that like, look at the sparkly details on all these flowers on the shirt. Okay, yes. Could we get in there and do all that? Yes, we could. But there's a number of things that are saying to me, no, let's not do that. Partly it's time. How long does this take? What am I hoping to get out of this? If, like, this is already going a little bit of a tangent, but if I were painting a copy of a Velázquez painting, I might try to get each little nuance, because in a Velázquez painting, he's carefully studied what is in focus and what is not in focus, and everything's in order. Here, it's a photograph. So what's in order is whatever the camera focus decided it was, or what the photographer decided should be in focus. But even still, it's nothing like the human eye in terms of selecting what it's going to look like. The human eye can filter out things. It can see things that aren't even there, actually. That's my understanding, is like, I mean, we know that, but it can also see things that are there but aren't being seen by the eye. Like, it can fill in information that's not there. So anyway, when I look at this photo, I want to go right in for the dreamy peepers, and then everything else should be relatively not out of focus, but broad focus. Like, so that's why when I'm doing the flowers on the shirt here, I'm just massing in the main color, and I'm not going in for those little sprinkly dinklies. Does that make sense? I'm not gonna take too much time on that, but you got to fill it in, and you know, it doesn't hurt to use brushwork. Like, look, let's say I go like that, I use a brush work like that, and then if I want, I can take the lightest light and then sprinkle in those highlights. See? Something like that. So, yes, they're not sharp highlights. Probably I'll end up doing another layer on top. But you get the idea. You can use your brush almost as a way of suggesting detail, even though it's not there. So, come And me. Snosberries. Who's ever heard of a snosberry? All right, pop quiz. How many golden tickets were distributed? Not including the fakes. I'm amazed none were lost. I remember being scared whenever Veruca and the father would be around for some reason. Like when she's yelling at him about getting her that ticket, and he makes an announcement in the factory where he's basically shut down all operations and hired his factory workers to just shell Wonka bars. And he says, the first person to find the golden ticket gets a £10 bonus in their pay bucket. And the people are so the Zeldavania. Oh, thank you. Well, how you doing? We've been talking lots of we've been doing quite a bit of, and what's the other one that we did yesterday? The grandpa, but that money was for tobacco. And then there's a couple of good ones. He said, I'm not really good at Charlie. That's a hard impression. But the other one that I liked was, I'm not really good at Wonka either, but we were talking a bit about the "you stole fizzy lifting drinks" scene, and that has been revealed. Augustus. Yeah, we've been through the whole canon of characters, but I don't know if anyone was particularly tuned in at that point. But yeah, Augustus. We also had ChatGPT chiming in about like little fun anecdotes about the production. And one of them that I didn't know was that the Chocolate River, which ultimately is the cause of Augustus's negligent homicide, is made of cocoa and water for real. And what happened was it was like spoiled. It went sour. It went off during production. And Augustus had to swim around in that stuff for a long time. Yeah, Augustus Gloop. And then the dad, Violet. You're turning violet, Violet. Violet Beauregard's dad is a good one. And then Eastland yesterday reminded us of what is it? You poison your watershed, Wonka. It's polluted. It's chocolate. That was a good scene. Anyway, lots to discuss. And at one point, I was getting a little... I was really just curious about things that, there's an anecdote that's circulating around a lot on the web about Gene Wilder. It's an interview with Gene Wilder, maybe from a recent documentary where he talks about not rehearsing with Charlie for the scene where he says, "You lose. You get nothing." And that was, he purposefully withheld that performance from Charlie until the moment of shooting. And that, he says he thinks he even made the child cry. Yes, I want a golden goose now. Yeah. That, I talk about Veruca as being the one child. Like, my question was, if somebody... Oh yeah, what's that? Kiko loves too. Who do we have there? That's an outstanding series of emotes. Welcome. What's your, Zeldavania, what's your trivia? I'm all ears. We can confirm with ChatGPT. Kiko loves too. Wow, that's a frightening image, but it's also, it's kind of it's menacing but childlike at the same time. Curious about what that is. Gene Wilder from Young Frankenstein. Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Excellent. What's her name? I was wondering, like, what would happen? Let's just do like a what if. If Charlie had been chopped to smithereens in the fizzy lifting drink exhibit or whatever machine, do you think the show would have gone on? Like, would Wonka have chosen, who would Wonka have chosen of the remaining people? Because it's not like that would have been unheard of. I mean, he's just basically killed 3 other kids, so why not? For Charlie, it would just be maybe more mess to clean up. I don't know. That fake limp he does walking to the gate and tumble was something Gene wanted to do, to be spontaneous. Yes. That's right. And such a good, the little barrel roll, right? So yeah, that was apparently his artistic decision, right? Wonka would have to make an example out of one of the Loompas for their lack of security. Oh my God. Hold on now. Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, they've already... I would agree normally, but Wonka is like, he's already racked up at that point 3 aggravated murders, or no, maybe not, just like negligent homicide. I'm sure he'd wait for another contestant to pick someone. Yes. Yes. Now, you don't think he would have to like start over and find a new. I mean, these are the questions that come to mind. They were killed though, right? Yeah, that's. I don't know if they were killed in all cases, like Augustus falling into the. They weren't killed though, right? They became deformed. They weren't killed. Kiko Loves, thanks for the follow and for the spirited chat. So Zeldavania says they were killed. They weren't killed though, right? They became deformed. So this is where it turns into a discussion more about the book, which I haven't read. Excuse me. But, like, not everybody, right? Like, what's her name fell down and was incinerated. Maybe they implied when Veruca Salt goes down the chute, there's like a chance that if it was a Tuesday, she might not go to the incinerator. But my understanding from the movie, or at least my impression, is that they're done. Like, there's not much you can do to bring Violet Beauregard back from that. That's a serious deformity. I mean, maybe, I just don't think she'd be able to survive for much longer than, in that condition. And then Gloop gets stuck in the chute. But yeah, I mean, I think Wonka has at least some blood on his hands. But I think the original point being that, we don't see any of the death, maybe that's what Wonka's more concerned about at that point. Like, he doesn't want the other kids to have to witness. And so there he'd make an example of one of the Loompas. Yeah. So sad. Exactly right. I heard the book is pretty grim. Kiko Loves. Yeah, and someone said that the movie is very was not well received by most audiences and critics. That, in fact, it was seen as too mean, like too, And there's a lot of things that wouldn't fly today for sure, but Zeldavania says it certainly felt like a metaphor for some type of devil punishing sinners. Yeah. Yeah, right. Wonka being the kind of almost devilish authority figure. Yeah. And people in the 70s were kind of like, nah, wait a minute, man. Like, that ain't cool, probably, right? It was filmed in Germany. That was another thing that ChatGPT told us. And what else do we know? Not much. I think it's just fun to discuss the psychology behind a lot of those things. Like, who do you think is the least best? Charlie had little fish teeth. Right. Okay. Yeah. The remake by Burton showed the kids after they leave the factory. Interesting. Okay. Haven't seen that one yet. Although I was thinking about, I screwed up my triple portrait series. I was going to do another, either like a woman with a 80s female icon with a gun. I was going to do anyway. The ship sailed, and I decided to go with Wonka because I had this great photo, and I said, you know what, we don't have to be so rigid. But where was I? I was talking about, oh yeah, there could be an opportunity to do the other ones, the other Wonkas. But I'm also, the caveat is that I've never seen the Burton one, and I recently watched the Tim Chalamet one, and I have to say I did not like it at all. I didn't like the CGI. I didn't like the music. I didn't stick it out. So to be fair, maybe it turns a corner and gets better after the first 20 minutes. But I love musicals. Yes. I love, particularly actually, the Howard Ashman and why am I blanking on his name? Ashman. I can't remember. But you know, the Disney stuff. But really, any musicals, like my niece turned me on to Hadestown, you name it. How about you? What's your best to stick to the first? Yeah, I there's certainly there's going to be no shortage of reference photos, but I don't know. When I saw the I think one of the mistakes that I tend to make is I'm born right in like I'm born in 1980, and one of the mistakes that I tend to make is, you know, you think these are all 80s things, right? I mean, obviously this is not, but I think as a child, I might have thought that this was a contemporary film. I liked, okay, I liked Wonka. I thought it was good. Okay, so I was reading, you're talking about Chalamet. I think one of the things that didn't sit well with me about Wonka was the way the recording was done. Like, it was like so clean that it sort of stripped out it's like there was like zero reverb or something, and it was just, I'd like it to have more of that warmth and humanity that the singing is, that, because I've got a golden ticket. All that stuff is like live vocals. Yeah, why not? I mean, that ship has sailed, I know, but I think that's kind of what I was looking for. Or at least the semblance of the semblance of live vocals, which I think they can do. But just the auto tuning was like beyond. I like auto tune. I'm not knocking auto tune, but in the right context. Pretty sure they had to mix Timmy's voice a lot. Yes. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. And that's fine, but Charlie Wilder, he's not like, he doesn't have that kind of professional. I mean, this is an interesting discussion, and I'm getting off track here. I'm going to try to paint away, but Gene Wilder's no, Justin Bieber or whoever. Christina Aguilera. But he just owns that, but I think Hollywood needs now the person to be like a flawless. I mean, this is not news. I'm not just trying to say that I know something about Hollywood that, nobody else does, but just saying, I think the execs tend to underestimate how forgiving the audience might be of vocal vagaries, and yes, they would get dragged on social media or whatever. There would be backlash. Nice. Yes. Sorry. What, but don't you think that, that's more like what's on the social media? And to be honest, like, and they probably already thought about this, but trying to play it safe and make sure that you don't get like people raging against you on the internet is a bad move, I think. I think make it human, and then let the haters talk about how awful it is, and that's your promo. I mean, that's your, because everyone's like, really? Is it that bad? And then they'll listen and be like, it isn't that bad, is it? I don't know. But I don't know how much tweaking and auto-tune they did on that movie, but it sounds like a lot. And then the CGI of the flying candies, that, I sort of lost it at that point. I was like, the candies don't need to be, but anyway, I didn't give it a chance. Beyond that, so I'd be open. What is it? Do the songs improve? Or maybe they're, I just didn't like the song, the opening song. Anyway, I'm being a grump, and I'm definitely being like a boomer. I was mad last night when I saw that the Mets wore skiing goggles to do their champagne celebration. So, who knows? Changing the subject. All right, I'm going into the background because I don't have anything else to do here. Speaking of Timmy Chalamet, I want to do Dune. I want to do Lynch's Dune, and I want to do, let's go Astros. Very good. So wait, tell me, I'm not watching any American League. What's happening with the Astros? Are they in? Do they have a? Do they clinch playoffs? Great. From what? From wild card or? Oh, great. That's exciting. I'm thrilled to have my. I think we've got 2 New York teams in the playoffs now. But Chalamet and what's his name? Kyle MacLachlan, and I don't think there's a third Dune guy. I loved Chalamet as Muad'Dib in Dune, in the new Dune. I only watched toward the end of the season. Yeah, not a super fan. I watch more NFL than anything. I hear you. I've never been. I haven't really ever been a baseball fan until this year, and I know you know, call me a fair weather fan. Certainly, what I am, but I would like to know how dedicated I am in the regular season. It's too many games, right? Unless you have like a star player that you want to watch and see their, see their stats. It's a big slog, but I don't think they can change that at this point. And NFL is like there's one game a week. It's a better rhythm. I couldn't take Timmy serious in Dune. I just expect a typical action hero body type. Okay, fair enough. You're thinking, yeah, like MacLachlan he's got boyish features, but you can understand more how people are going to be like, whoa, and how he can kill with a word, because he's got the action hero like frame at least. Or maybe you're not even talking Lynch's Dune, but that would be, I think there's so many funny. Timmy is just so scrawny. Yeah. The one that I think Lynch's Dune is going to be really rich for discussion, because it's one of those movies that I've seen a million times and love the dialogue in it. I mean, I've seen this one a lot, but that one was like, I became obsessed with it in my 20s watching that David Lynch one. And it's just so funny, the dialogue. It's so weird. And I think it would be really fun to do portraits of like the Baron, and we'll have to see what we can find on Google Images. But yeah, I had fun with that Dune movie. All right, now what's going on here? When we do the time lapse, you're gonna see this like of the flowers popping up, which will be fun. Let's do these quicker. We're not really getting any. Since we're not going crazy here on detail, we can just plunk it in. So the Astros have come back from a rough period, from what I understand, not having been around. I did notice that they were doing their trash can heist, and I don't really remember the details of that, but basically they were allegedly smacking a trash can when I don't remember how that scheme worked, but people didn't let them off the hook for a long time. Are they finally off the hook? Did they get rid of the manager who allowed that? Or was it, I don't know. I don't even know what happened. They were banging a trash can to signal to the batter. They decoded the pitch signals so that they could see them. I'm sorry if that's a sore subject. It's fascinating. I don't know what happened, but I remember it being interesting as a non-baseball fan at the time. We would need to brush up on that. And what's the origin of the Houston Astros? Are they from the space race days? Is that when that team came in and that's why they're called the Astros, like the astronauts? Come with me in your... And then skipping back to the discussion of musicals, there's a great doc called Howard, which is Howard Ashman, who wrote Little Shop, and then Kiko. When they built the Astrodome in Houston, they renamed from Colt 45s to the Astros. Got it. In 1965. Great. Yeah, it doesn't sound expansion-y because, it's not, but it's kind of, it's like the equivalent of the San Jose Sharks for back then. Or not the San Jose Sharks. You know what I'm saying. It's it would be like the Cleveland Guardians or some other branding change. I don't know. So yeah, so it is kind of what's the word? It is a space race thing because 65, and that's where all the Houston, we have a problem. Mission control. So yeah, if you're interested in, it's a documentary, I think, on Disney Plus, which is Howard Ashman, who wrote Little Shop and then went on to do almost all of the Disney stuff. Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, all those 90s powerhouses. And the doc is really good because it shows the working process. And there are interviews with I'm Menken. Ashman Menken, Howard Ashman, and what's the guy's name? Josh Menken? No, that's Josh Mankiewicz. I forget Menken's name. Anyway, okay. Yeah, yes, the great soundtracks, and it's kind of marked the beginning of Disney taking these opportunities to make turn them into musicals. I think they were doing it a bit, but it's like sort of the modern musical, right? It's like, I don't know enough of the like pre-90s Disney. I'm thinking Bedknobs and Broomsticks, or like, what's the Sheriff of Nottingham one? Those aren't really musicals. Anyway, I digress. It's a great doc. And Ashman, Menken are a powerhouse writing team. Surprisingly, it's Menken who's doing the orchestration and everything, but Ashman's got not just the lyrics, but he basically is the one that's doing the songwriting. Whereas I think Ashman more is like an arranger. He's like the Lars Ulrich of the duo. And not really, because Menken can play piano, and he was more like writing the music, helping to refine musically what was going on. Anyway, great documentary. I'm getting lost in the woods here. Speaking of Disney musicals, that's a great a great one. Frozen 2. Lots of good tunes in there. And Lost in the Woods, I was so pleased with that one because I went through this huge phase of almost worshiping Peter Cetera, who wrote The Glory of Love, which is the Karate Kid 2 soundtrack. Relatively famously, almost was part of the Rocky 4 soundtrack. It was going to be like the opening, the final credits were going to be Glory of Love, but they decided it didn't fit because it was sort of too sappy or something for like the final credits. They wanted it to be more of like a rocker, which I forget what it is, but it's something equally epic. But Glory of Love was then bought by or licensed for Karate Kid 2. That's another one. We got to make a note to self. We got to get Pat Morita. So yeah, anyway, where was I? I was really into Cetera, and that Lost in the Woods song is just like, it's Cetera. You can hear it. I'm not really a Chicago fan. I'm just what's his name? Okay, so we got a couple of more to go here. Let's try and finish this out quick so that we can at least... Seems like we'll do another day on this one. What time is it? Oh, no, we're halfway through, so maybe we can wrap this one up. Here, we're going to use this sprinkly sparkly. Sprinkly sparkly. Okay, looking back and forth. I think we've got all our little pastels there, right? How's that look? Kiko, thank you. We're zoomed out. We're taking a look. Let's get our normal zoom focus. This looks great. I appreciate it. It's brushy. I'm gonna get in there and finish everything else out. Sometimes I'm tempted to leave it brushy and not do the background, but I'm building up my confidence to be so arrogant as to leave the background out. But right now, we're going to do it. So, what I like to do for the time lapse, which I have going in the other room right now, by the way, and you could see examples. If you're new to the channel, you can go to the Instagram and see the final time lapse. Like, depending on what the time lapse is like, I try to squash it down to 12 seconds. So it could be like 24. Candy's dandy, but catnip's quicker. Wait a minute. Is it catnip? Candy is dandy, that's right. And then I was thinking of when he scolds Veruca for denying snozberries are a real fruit. Snozberries? Who's ever heard of a snozberry? And he just, and that's like that's when he gets physical. Like, did he do that before? I think that's where the contract that they sign at the beginning, you know, they better account for physical, you get what I'm saying. This is not, none of this would have flown today. Corporal punishment. And what's oh, Kiko just went to Insta. Great art. Thank you. Check it out. We've got there's some oil paintings on there which I put front and center just because I know I've become aware that there's not a lot of love in certain corners of the internet for digital painting. And I want everybody to be able to get behind what we're doing here, not just, you know, the digital enthusiasts. So I put the oil paintings up there basically to say, yes, if you were wondering, I'm a classically trained oil portrait painter, and I'm just sort of bored of that stuff. Ariandel, speaking of which, Ariandel Art, how are you doing? It's a busy one today. We got more chat than I can shake a stick at. And we're having fun. We're trying to clock in our background here, keep things loose and not too. All right, so Susan, what else was I? Anyway, sometimes we'll get off track. That's fine. I was thinking about something else. Oh yeah, maybe it was something about the time lapses. Like in the time lapse, I'm doing all right. I'm happy. It's Inktober. Got a bit more attitude to draw. Interesting. Okay. Tell me more about Inktober, because I'm not a I'm not neither on the internet or in real life am I like plugged into the art scene. Oh, bloody Inktober! I think I might start it this year. Speaking of, that's. Oh, sorry, Zeldavania. Speaking of art, I remembered the artist streamer I knew, Lady Galaga. She paints kind of Bob Ross style, and she gets quite a few viewers. I've been wanting to ask if she had tips to help your stream when she's on. Cool. Thank you. I should just go watch that if she is on. Kiko, oh bloody Inktober. I think I might start it this year. Arian Del Art. Well, it's basically a month where you draw every day. There are lots of challenges with various themes. Oh, cool. Wow. Gosh, I wonder if I don't know if I would be able to keep my momentum with this and do that, especially since October is shaping up to be nightmarishly busy. But let's see. You know, one thing I do have coming up is an open studios in Brooklyn. So I'll put out the invite for that. I should do that sooner than later. I looked at Inktober's official prompts, and in my opinion, they're terrible. Any examples? Excuse my seasonal allergies here. Catnip's quicker. This kind of looks like that's what Wilder's thinking here. He just smoked a ton of catnip. Zeldavania, those challenges seem better for newer artists. I looked at it's all traveling based prompts. Okay, what do you mean by that? Like a bridge, a bus, stuff like that? Or are we thinking? Got it. Backpack, passport, snacks. Cool. I kind of like that. It's like, what should I draw? That was always the question when I was little. And I remember one incident where my mother gave me a prompt. It was, how about a squirrel? And I was like, nah. Like, whenever you ask for what you should draw, you don't want to do it, because if you don't know what to draw, then you don't want to draw. Anyway. Okay, speaking of I don't know what to draw, he's coming into focus, right? Well, it's simple, but you don't have to make simple drawings, right? Yeah, you can do whatever you want. That's interesting. And it has to be ink. It can't be digital. Or another question that I have regarding what we were just talking about is let's pop in these big brushes here. Gosh, there's lots of things that I'm wanting to remember to ask chat here, but I'm forgetting, as it's not often that we have quite this many participants in the chat at once. So I sincerely appreciate it because I need to get my chops up at being able to chat and work at the same time. Here's an example where we need, let's see, let's get this. I think what's critical here is this highlight along the edge of the hat. First thing I wondered seeing this, does the velvet texture change your technique at all? We had a little moment of that earlier, excuse me, where I didn't use a dark, and I used sort of an off dark here. And that is how velvet works. Like, it's just never going to be a darkest dark when the light's hitting it, but you don't get a ton of highlights. And that's really the only difference. The only highlights are on the shoulder. So you just go boom, one there, and then that says velvet. I mean, I could get into that more. Unlike silk, like his silk tie is all highlights. Like, look at this. I don't want to get back into it right now, but mostly it's highlights, whereas the jacket is mostly dark. It's just the way the light bounces off of it and whether or not it gives you more information to grab onto or not. And, in this case, I don't think it definitely doesn't give you a lot of information. And yet, that's kind of a good thing, because I could just say, it's all black. It's all purple. So, good question. It's not, it's less about technique in terms of applying paint in a certain way than it is looking out for how the light plays off of that kind of texture surface. Low reflection, totally. And the darks should be really dark, but this area of the lapel is actually not a darkest dark, because I think the light is hitting it slightly. Like, you can see, boom, there's a little highlight there that I don't have. But I'm keeping this one broad. He's a zany guy and his hair is pretty crazy, so I'm going to kind of keep it broad. I'm not tightening it up. Broad focus being this idea of keeping things loose and painterly in a way that, is not polished. It's not going to be. And that's my weakness. I talk about that a lot on the channel, on the streams, is that my weakness is going too broad, too polished. I have a lot of painter friends who would laugh at that idea that I'm too polished, but I believe that I want my style to feel a little bit more spontaneous than it usually does, so that's where I'm going. All right. Come with me. All right, so see this here, we're grabbing a nice light color and we're pulling in these accents wherever we see them. Here, let's get in here and do this one while we can. Here's a good example of like blurred focus. So we'll do our dark for the top of the rim of the hat, and then look at this. The way photography works is different from the eye, obviously. And one of the things is when it gets farther back in depth of field, you see the light of the background, and then there's this blur of brown and background. That's where the two one blurs into the other, and then it's dark. So let's take the blurry area. Again, is this how photography works? Yes. Am I trying to make it look more like the human eye sees? Yes. Am I going to be able to do that? I don't know. But sometimes when you see something like this in your photograph, you think, let's do it. Let's simulate what the photograph is doing, because I don't know. If you don't have a live model, all you have is a photo, and you kind of have to work with that. I've never been good at making my paintings look like anything other than the photo. Like, I'm not good at making a painting from life. I'm sorry. When I'm painting from a photo, I'm going to end up making it look like the photo, because I don't have a great imagination, despite the caption title of this. My imagination skills are not my strong suit with painting. So making things up is hard for me to do, and making up kind of brushwork that doesn't exist is hard for me to do too. So I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, but or what we were even talking about. Okay, let's clean the clock here. We've got a variety of things that need to be done. We're just going to grab this one color. So one thing we were starting to explore in the aliens painting was like, and Zelda Vania, you were helping me with this the other day. Don't make it look too much like Starry Night. I was exploring with expressive brushwork in the background, because it's safer there for me. It feels less pressurized. And I'm going to continue that exploration here. And this is kind of the point in the painting where I feel it's really fun to make it look like a painting, or like, I don't know, in the background anyway. I feel like I can make this more abstract. And then if the background is crazy, or if the background is like funky and wiggly, then I might be more willing to let myself off the hook for the head being painterly and funky. If that makes sense. Like, you want there to be a kind of overall unity of focus. So by letting myself go crazy in the background a bit, in terms of these wiggly, wild shapes, I might, again, feel more comfortable letting the face be as crazy as it is right now. So okay, here's these curly cues in the hair. Let's grab this. And So what happens when I close up the background? So in other words, just take a look at, here's my darks in the background. Yes, we know they're there. But when you close the gaps between these swaths of blurred color in the background, when you finally decide to say, all right, well, you can't just leave the canvas coming through. You have to question that and say, why not? Why don't I want to leave it there? Does it add to it, or is it just a gimmick? And that's the sort of thing that I think I'm a little traumatized from a very dogmatic, traditional painting teacher who was like not the most open-minded as far as expressive art. I'm a little bit like, well, are you allowed to do that? Like, so that's my cross to bear. But I don't want to do that. Let's see. So, can we leave it fun like this? I don't know. I'm going to decide that when the fun has to end. How fun can we leave it? Come with me. And the other part that I love in the beginning that I think deserves a little highlight is the whistle when they're in the shrinking room. I think that's the code to open up the door to the candy realm. And Mike TV's mom says, Rachmaninoff. And that's not correct, actually. I forget who wrote that piece, but I think it might be Mozart. And it's just so funny that she says Rachmaninoff like with such confidence. And most people watching are probably like, yeah, whatever. Like that's what it is. But I think a friend of mine showed me a lot of Mozart stuff. And one of those things was that little moment. He was a classically trained pianist. Not classically trained, but, knows how to play piano. And he said he loves Mozart, so he was like, that's not Rachmaninoff. Okay. Come with me, and you'll be... So the fun of the background here is the topic that we're getting to. How much fun can it be without it being distracting? Now, yeah, it's a good subject to have fun with because obviously he's a lunatic. But how much fun can we really have before it just starts becoming distracting, gimmicky, all of that stuff? I'd love to hear thoughts. If do we keep going in this psychedelic background direction, or do we want to tighten it up more? I leave that to you to chime in and let me know if you have any thoughts on it, or just what I'm going to do ultimately is just let the painting, let it play out. And then at some point I'll say, damned if I don't want to do the time-lapse video now. And that's kind of what ends up happening. I know that's not good. I feel like I should be doing what's best for the painting and not for social media, but such is the contemporary situation with art. You have to think about what that, like Instagram needs another time lapse, or they're gonna, not give me, they're gonna keep me in 200 views jail. It's just something I've learned about. Like the other day when I put Ripley up, the Ripley time lapse, it was like flying off the shelves. The kids couldn't get enough of it. And it was like a scrumdiddlyumptious bar. And the next thing I knew, it just stopped. And it was like the like per view ratio was something I'd never seen before. I was like, wow, this is like something like 17, I forget the percentage, but it was vastly more likable, apparently, on TikTok than any of other of my time lapses were. And then, woe is me, the dizzying highs and terrifying lows of social media. It was like nothing. After 20 minutes of like powerhouse performance, it was zero, and it's still zero. So I started researching it, and basically they say that they want you to just keep producing videos. Your account, I have 8 followers. Sorry. So I have 8 followers on TikTok, and they're not going to let an 8 follower account go big. I'm not saying that I would go big, but it felt hot. It was like, wow, if they let this one go, but I don't know exactly how it works. So if anybody else knows, I'd love to figure it out. But also, like I was saying before, do we really want to be driving our ship based on what the TikTok algorithm does? No. Kiko loves. I have no idea. LOL. I just post on Instagram. Okay. Yeah. And Instagram hates my paintings. So, I don't know how, I haven't even looked at how that works. I thought that if I just did reels of the time lapses that I'd get more contact, but so far not happening. And I'm not like concerned. I'm not sad or anything. I think one of the things that I've noticed, at least about Facebook, and maybe this translates over to Meta, is that, see this? I already blocked in the background there. I don't know if I like that. Here, we gotta keep it loose. This is what happens when I start thinking about, social media. With my with Facebook, the general consensus out there is that the age group who's on Facebook tends to be very anti-digital art. It's like the people who are on there looking at painting, and this is for everyone. If you see a real paintbrush on that time-lapse video, it's going to get more play. I'm not under any illusions, operating under any illusions. I just know that it's going to be really interesting when I have a real Kiko. Well, I got to head out. Can't wait to see this finished. Have a great stream. Kiko, thank you for joining. thanks for the spirited discussion and the emotes and everything else, and the follow. Take care and see you next time. I don't know if this one's going to be done today, but I think we're going to have to go back in after we get the background in. We'll see. Thanks for the have a great stream too. It's been great. This one's been great. I'm really thankful that we've had some convo, and it keeps me inspired. It's also hard to, it's a new thing for me to learn how to paint and chat. And it's a skill that's good to have. Painterly. Mixing brush. All right. What should we do? The idea, oh God, I got onto this conversation about the time lapse because I wanted to point out that when I'm thinking about how the time lapse looks, I want to work in regions. So like I'm not going to finish the head. In other words, I'm not going to go back to the face till the very end because my thinking is if you leave the head kind of unresolved, the chances are higher that somebody might watch it through to the end. And that's what it's all about. So here. I also think it would be like better to just not do the head at all until the end. But that's just not how I paint. I need to have information down. I need to have the information down for like colors and head position and all that in order to keep working. All right, so Inktober. Another thing that I want to do, oh gosh, I don't like that. I don't like when it turns into Starry Night. Let's zoom out and see what that looks like. Yeah, it's okay. Let's keep it broad. What was I yapping about? Doesn't matter. That's the bottom of the hair. I'm like going back in time and trying to, what the heck was all this? Drawing. All right. I keep stealing from the photo. We're not going to do that anymore, right? Let's get some of these darker values coming in. I don't really remember what part of the background this is. If you can recall what's happening here, like, is it just like a bunch of lollipops or like what part of the scene is it? I know it's in the giant hall of candy where Gloop meets his untimely demise. But which part? Charlie, cheer up, Charlie, do. That's my favorite song, I think, of the film. Cheer up, Charlie. Hold your head high. Tomorrow. Let's find out. I like this sort of cloudy thing happening with the background. Let's find out how we're going to resolve all this. So Lady Galaga, is the spelling you have there? I think today what I'm going to do in about 45 minutes when I start to wrap up, I think what I'm going to do is attempt my first raid, and maybe if they're on or some. Are there any other artists who are out there who are live right now who you guys would recommend I raid? Because I wanted to watch other painters and see what's going on with the streams, and I think a big part of it is just having the support of you guys in the stream, in the chat, because it inspires. It's just so much fun. Ariandel Art, I don't know if he is online right now, but Inner Vision Art is a great artist with a lot of experience. Great. And what's the sort of style there? Or do you know what the medium is? Oil painting. Oh, cool. That would be very interesting to see. I'm going to have to learn real quick how to film oil painting. I have a bunch of old iPhones burning a hole in my junk drawer, and I'm going to bring those out. Getting into the hat here. There's the Instagram. He's a great person. Thanks, Ariandel. I will check it out. What's the subject matter? Like he's painting from life, I guess. Squinting down. Fantasy art. Cool. I wonder if that's something I've seen some of on Instagram or here as well. Got to get this, keep this hat nice and brushy too. All right, I'll check in and see if those guys are on in a little bit. Had we been talking a bit about the guy who did the Conan? The Conan the Barbarian. So there's a guy, Adam Miller Art. Maybe I let people know about this guy. Adam Miller Art does he's inspired by that artist who does the Conan the Barbarian art. Frank Miller? I don't know. I forget the name. But this guy, the contemporary painter who I know is named Adam Miller. And he does outstanding giant oil paintings with, allegorical themes. Like he did one that was like a historical painting about some incident that happened between two paleontologists who showed up to a dig site and got into a physical altercation. This happened in the 1800s or something. And it's just he chooses these things that are really interesting. It's like a documentary oil painting. All right, we're getting the hat chopped in here. Whoops. That's highlights. That's kind of what I think of when I think of the fantasy genre, is those comic books. Another area that I love is the Magic the Gathering illustrations on those cards. Some of them are really cool. Those are like oil painting in a lot of cases. And we're gonna find out where this is. All right, so we started over here. We're trying to piece together what's going to happen next in the background. Here's a gray. Kind of got to use that brush like a brush. All right, zooming out. Obviously, we're getting a little, I don't know what the word is. Let's much to do here. Look at this pinky thing. Pardon me. So really, let's zoom in here and find once and for all what this is. There are darks, there are lights, and a lot going on here. No, that's not what we want. All right, what do we say? Are we looking like... It's been going slowly today. I don't know why. I feel like we've covered a lot of ground. But we have another half hour left for our 3-hour mark. But I'm not like blasting through. I'm not quite where I want to be to finish. And I want this to be, I want the background to be artsy-fartsy, but what always happens to me when I try to get artsy-fartsy is I lose my confidence. And I'm like, yeah, but that should just be, shouldn't be so weird. It shouldn't be like all this stuff. Like I take it too far. I should have left it. It's all that kind of regret. Just stay in my lane and do photorealism. Who knows if that's even my lane. I don't think it is. It's how I started was I was always like, cool, that looks like a photo. And that's how I wanted to paint. And then I crossed paths for better and worse with my painting teacher, who's a brilliant teacher, great painter. But the idea of photorealism was very quickly beaten out of my 18, 19-year-old brain as a legitimate art form. Oh boy. What was that? That was some crazy brush. I get it. I see what's happening here. I pressed the wrong button. That happens. What I would like to know is and you'll seem like to be. Yeah, so how are we going to finish this up? Let's get in here with our hair colors. And then find out what's next. Golden highlights in the hair, right? That's what's next. The hair, man, that's hard. If you want to keep it psychedelic, how do you do that? It's tricky business. Let's unify all this. It's risky, but we're going to do it. Unify that background, Because once again, I've gotten to the point in my painting where I say, it's getting too wild. Let's make it a little bit more like the reference image. Okay. Here's where I've been longing to resolve stuff. So, let's see if we can do it. Come with me. You wouldn't want to get on the wrong side of Wonka, that is for sure. Now, what is the problem with Slugworth? He's a nice man, ultimately. He's just doing... Did, like, Wonka buy him out? Like, what's the... Maybe we should do Slugworth. I don't know how many TikTok fans are going to find that compelling, but... Cheer up, Charlie. Hold your head high. Tomorrow we Don't you know that Grandpa Joe cheer up, Joe. Sweet. You got old Crazy Eyes again. What do you think? Is it Crazy Eyes? The more I fill in the background, the more I start to see. Old Crazy Eyes. Swirly background, huh? Swirly curly. So again, we squint down, we get back to our fundamentals of squinting. And when you're losing it, go back to your fundamentals and grind it out. Also notable might be Zeldivania. Are those flowers? Yes, that's kind of what I'm thinking. It's like, it looks like he's standing in front of a Macy's Day parade. But it's hard to say because I think this is taking place in the Great Hall of Candy. And I just don't know. I don't know whether because a lot of the stuff in there is like lollipops and candy flowers. Yeah, exactly. So what's happening from the perspective of the painting is, as I do more of this, what I'm finding is the more I get into the background, it's too sharp. Like it's distracting from the head, which I didn't really want. It's hard to, I won't get into criticizing everything that's already been done because it's not that helpful at this point. I'm trying to but I don't like how everything's sharp. There are too many sharp edges in the background still. So now I'm just trying to clean that up and blur down those sharp edges. But at the same time, I like the sharp edges, so I just don't love them exactly how I did them. But it's good practice. Same as last time, exactly. It's my Achilles heel. I'm trying to use the background as an excuse to go crazy. But if you don't go crazy in the fundamentals, you're not gonna get a free ride. There's no free lunch. So it's tricky. But yeah, too much like Starry Night and you're gonna suffer. At least the subject is dark against the bright. That's true. Yes, that's a great point. The hat and everything. Yeah, it's still working, but I think I thought I was going to get away with it this time. It was almost better when it was like just swirls, and then once I started to really fill it in, that's when you say, oh, it's no longer just implied background. You've really said, okay, that's what they are. Like they're these chunky paint squabby things, whatever you want to call it. I've gone too far down that path. So how do we do that? We blur edges. This is what we learned in school. This is what we'll do again here. You blur the edges, find out where you're, basically back to fundamentals. Where are the darkest darks? Where are the lightest lights? And I mean, talk about what's happening with the light there. If you don't, play this the way it looks in the photo with the blurred focus, then it will start appearing like, well, what is that? Is this, it'll make you think too much about what that stuff is, which you don't want to do. You want it to be accepted what it is without having to get into the, go into the weeds, so to speak. And that is much easier said than done. But I suspect that by the end of today, now that I know this background was quite difficult, I thought I was going to be able to pull it off more quickly. But now that I know there's no turning back, I'm not leaving it I'm not going to leave the background as I thought I would, which is going to be the swirlies. I'm going to clean up the background. But now that I know that, it kind of lets me off the hook. I can then say, okay, we got to come back in tomorrow. I feel like yours has more open eyes and a different shine. It actually feels more like a photo. Wow. Yeah, like, that's interesting. You mean his head? It feels more like a photo than the photo. Yeah, it kind of feels like digital filtery, which I don't really want. The plan has always been to save the face has a different light quality. Yeah, the brush strokes are very choppy and it's not unified. So the idea will be ultimately clean up the background and then go back in to the head. The plan has always been to go back and refine the features in the head as a last step, because I also think that makes the time lapse a little more interesting when there's a last cleanup on the face and sort of like ping the highlights in the eyes and just sort of like the last hurrah on the face. So with that in mind, you have to solve. Yeah, I mean, you have to. We're gonna have to solve that. And when I do go to solve all that stuff, it's not going to be a good idea to have the background super chunky and choppy as I have it now. You want that resolved as well. So like, look at the edge of the cheek here. Mine is very sharp. It's sharp here. The mouth is super sharp. Like all that stuff needs to be blurred. So we'll do it, but I think the reason that I leave that, if I finish the head first, then it makes the time lapse like sort of moot. Like you're like, why am I watching this? The head is done. But maybe people will see this and say the head is done in the first 3 seconds because they don't care. If they don't, they're just like, oh, Willy Wonka, next. So I'm still learning what my rhythm is for when I finish things. If you're painting from life, there's a real responsibility to keep everything going at the same focus at the same time. And I can get into that stuff ad nauseum, why it's important. But when you're painting from a photo, the photo is not going anywhere. You know that all that stuff is going to stay the same. And it's more tempting to kind of leave things to jump around wherever you want to go. But I think the truth is it's a bit of both. I noticed with artist time-lapse, they do amazingly realistic images, but I think halfway it looks great, and they should stop. Yeah, no, that's That's right. Like, how far do you need to take it? And if you don't take it very far and you just stop when it's looking painterly, whatever that means to you, is that a gimmick? Is that in fact kind of like, why? When is the time to stop? Is leaving it brushy just a mannerism that people today use to kind of cop out of finishing? It's and really it just comes down to like, what's your preference? What do you like to see? So, a lot of painters. So actually, wait, here's something that I wanted to resolve before too long. Let's get this. I'm going to really do I'm going to find our. There, find that. And then we'll just hit it around the corner here. We got to get this edge resolved so you can still see. Oh boy. Oh boy, that's not what I meant to do, but whatever. I want that hat to turn and not be quite so. Rigid. So the edge of the hat here is a great moment with which to turn an edge, bring the edge over all the way through. All right. Now, let's not forget top right corner of the head of the hat. So we'll take our blast of red and is it good? Is it too much? I don't know. We'll find out later. There's an edge, there's an edge. How are we looking? The lapel is like, I thought I was going to be able to get away with that one. I don't think I am. I think I need to hit the accents in it. Okay. Nope. Highlights in the hair, obviously another important item that has been. This is where it becomes a little like spot the difference. Like take a look. When you zoom out, you can flick your eye back and forth and say what's most wrong And knowing that, I'm going to steal this. If you know what's most wrong, you can mush it into place. Better. Better. There's a little oil paint look. I am not the world's most experienced oil painter, but I actually prefer drawing to painting. But I know that, again, from the perspective of the art-loving community, drawing doesn't really always get people fired up as much. That's not true. It just depends on how you do it. But the colors tend to get people. The shiny colors are what people like. All right, we need to make sure that looks like hair. Agreed? Psychedelic. What I kind of want is like everything to be psychedelic or like, not psychedelic. I want everything to look brushy and blurry, and then within that have the head be the most refined. So that's kind of where I'm at today. Like, look, see this edge here, very sharp edge. You can blur that down and get it more like the photo a little bit. Take this edge, blur it down, and you're flicking your eye back and forth and saying, yeah, that'll do. That'll do it. We're mushing things. Mushing and mashing. Okay, now we're clearly over the edge. We liked, at least I liked for a second, what was happening with the swirly curlies, but that ship has sailed. If we wanted to leave it curly swirly, we should have done it and left it, but we didn't. And now we have to pay the piper. I want the world, I want the whole world. I want to wrap it all up in my pocket. It's my bar of chocolate. Give it to me. And then my son I showed him that video, and he liked it because he likes the destructive nature of Veruca, but he could tell he was a little worried because he was like, wanted to keep watching it and make sure everything was okay. But it was like the part where she goes, I'm going to scream. That stuff is awesome. And we were trying to find out more about that performer. Was she really killed in the incinerator? We don't know. Okie doke. So you're going to see we're just going to start blurring. I want the world. Ouchie. At some point I'm going to need to figure out my setup a bit better. I got to get into the studio. I keep saying that, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm thinking about live streaming and oil painting. It'll be a weekend, so it won't be necessarily the same crew, but at least we'll get a data point of what happens when I try to paint in real life. I might do a drawing. Wonka. He's got that kind of how do you do look about him. But I don't know if I trust it entirely. Who in their right mind would sign that contract? The greed was just too much for Veruca's dad, for sure. This is tough stuff here. It's almost getting to be that time. And we don't need to stick the landing because we're going to come back and work on the head, even though it would have been nice to crush this one today. Let's take this little color. So I'm gonna really sign out now in just a few swashbuckles here. And I wish everyone a happy rest of your day. And let's get back to it tomorrow. This was a rousing session. We had some great discussion, and we also, I think, got some practice at my dreaded background. Arian Delart, thank you. Take care of yourself, and I appreciate it. Thank you for being here, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And it will be continued if we can. Now I'm just picking off the last little bits of canvas here. Okay. There's one. Lots of sharp edges in them there backgrounds. But yeah, lots to focus on for the next time. And let's save our Wonka v3, and then we'll dump this one as Wonka v3 JPEG. And then we can start our, basically open with Handbrake. Is that right? No, wait, we got to stop this. Screen recording. Oh. Oh, okay, here. Let's watch it. So today, it was a big day today, right? We got this stuff. Blink, ding, 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 ding. This is where I probably should have like left the vibe of the background. I don't know. No, you can't though. So I don't know. What do we think? So then the last day will basically be plugging in those gaps in the background and then making the head pop. So, how are we going to do that? I don't know. I think we need more time. I think we need a full 3 hours, and we'll do it. Did we open this with Handbrake? No, not yet. We'll Handbrake it. Start. And then we will say, so long, see you at the next chance. And very much fun hanging. Bye-bye.